everybody. We have an amazing collection of venture capitalists who we're going to have a conversation around the role of and the responsibility of VC when it comes to AI, because we are all pouring billions of dollars into these AI companies. I'm Ben Parr, co-founder of Octane AI company for e-commerce, and a venture capitalist. I run a pre-seed seed stage fund called Theory Forge Ventures, so it's on my shirt. I'm going to let my panelists very briefly introduce themselves. We have only 20 minutes, so we're going to do a very quick, rapid-fire kind of conversation. Would you like to start, David?
Sure. I'm David Tedden, based here in New York. I'm a partner with Orange Collective. We're a VC fund that exclusively invests in companies from Y Combinator, the world's leading tech accelerator. Median returns for investors in Y Combinator are 5x, top 10% are 16x, and the dogs, the bottom quartile, historically, are 3x. We are backed by 150 graduates of Y Combinator, and we focus on AI.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Kyung. I'm a general partner at J2 Ventures. We invest in dual-use technologies. So my partners and I focus on underwriting government markets. All of our companies serve both commercial and government/military markets. And we actually just announced our third fund of $250 million last week.
Congratulations.
Hi, everyone. My name's Celine. So I'm out of breath. I actually had a New York moment right now, so running up the stairs. So I'm from California, San Francisco. I was a founder for the last decade in San Francisco, was backed by Sequoia, Benchmark, sold my last tech company roughly 2.5 years ago, and went and flipped to the investor side. And recently I joined Fuel Venture Capital. We're a 550 million AUM fund, and we invest primarily in AI companies.
This is an open question of if the autonomous AI would have gotten you here faster. If there was a Waymo here in New York, maybe at some point. So the topic here is about VC's responsibility. So I want to kind of dive straight into that. Us, the VCs, are pouring billions of dollars into these AI companies, you know, from OpenAI to all of the new early stage startups. Do we have responsibility? What responsibility do we as venture capitalists have, specifically around, like, you know, what is our duty to funding artificial intelligence and autonomous systems that both like make returns for your LPs versus like making society better and like ethical AI and protecting society from what could be the harms of autonomous AI that we don't know about? What is that balance, I guess, is the question here. Easy questions, by the way.
I'm happy to kick things off, especially since, you know, my partners and I, we run a fund that works very closely with the Department of War. I was actually sharing with Ben, I thought I was running late this morning because we were actually taking some meetings with the Ukrainian military this morning. So, you know, when we invest, we obviously think very critically about the ethical underpinnings of the technologies that we're backing, right, and how it could be used in context of war. And, you know, with the caveat that we don't touch anything that would support kinetic warfare, so drones would actually be considered out of scope. That being said, we do invest in AI, and we do recognize that the AI companies that we're backing will feed into decision support systems that could inform, you know, the decisions of war fighters. You know, ultimately, I mean, Ben, I know your question is around kind of tension, right? And thinking about just making sure that we, like in the best case scenario, right, there should always be alignment between your LPs, their investors, and your founders in terms of the motivations behind building these capabilities. It's also been really interesting to kind of do what we do now at a time when defense tech has never been hotter. You have companies like Anduril raising at $30 billion valuations. We're not investors in Anduril, but, you know, when you have companies like that, like Palantir, right, which with exponential growth in their market cap, you're working with investors who are in some ways underwriting war, right? Because they're underwriting markets for these technologies. And so that's certainly something we think very critically about. And ultimately for us, we've chosen not to back technologies that support kinetic warfare, but we are deeply, deeply committed around building capabilities, right? And building capacity for the military as well as government services.
So a couple things. First, I should say I can only speak on my own behalf, not on behalf of my partners at my firm. I think as a VC, I have three conflicting imperatives. The first is from the LPs, my limited partners. They've given me strictly financial mandate. We don't have any ESG or impact mandate. So my job is grow the money. Second is we have a legal mandate, right? We have to operate in compliance with the law. Our companies have to operate in compliance with the law. That is non-trivial, right? Because there are many examples of VC-backed companies who don't do that. So obviously we try and promote that. And thirdly is the ethical imperative. So everyone has their own source of ethics. My own, I come from a Jewish background, so I'm informed by Jewish texts, but they may not speak to many of you. So I will speak in a language that all of you can speak, which is capitalism. So at Goldman Sachs, one of the aphorisms, the culture of Goldman Sachs, is to be long-term greedy. And I'm definitely from the school of thought that if you are long-term greedy as opposed to short-term greedy, you will think about the ethical implications of what you're doing, right? Does the company you invest in pollute, right? Either intellectual pollution, like putting malware, misinformation out there, or physical pollution, right, in the water. And I think that has two levels of impact. One is if the company is doing unethical things, right, there are legal costs, reputational costs, blowback costs, but also the sort of leaders who are doing that are often the people who are doing unethical things internally, right, in terms of maybe HR policy and harassing subordinates and misfiling expenses and all sorts of other stuff that I've seen in my career that also are a problem for me as an investor.
So I can speak from a early stage AI builder. A lot of the companies that I work with, I invest at the early stages, like literally might be the first check into a company. And I have to say, I think there's always this fear of like, what is AI gonna do for humanity? You know, is it gonna be something that's working against us? Can't predict that future or not, but what I will say, the people building the technology today, it always comes from a place of how can we help people today? A lot of the conversations that happen at the building stage is how can we help people, you know, do better at their job? How can we help, you know, doctors be able to have more information faster, you know, like algorithms for them to be able to predict and help people in real time. So I just kind of want to call that out because I think a lot of times when I leave San Francisco, there's this kind of conversation of like, what are they doing over there? And it's like, honestly, people are just building things that they believe are going to help humans and are going to progress, you know, the way that we work, live, enjoy everything that we do. So
that's actually a great jumping off point for my next question, which is, what's an example from any of you of an autonomous AI that you've seen or maybe you've even invested in that's been having like a tangible or practical or real world impact that maybe the audience should know more about?
Sure. So I'll give an example of a company I co-founded and chair called Action Tank. So Action Tank uses AI to empower advocacy groups, nonprofits. So let's take as an arbitrary example ACLU, because many of you are probably familiar with them. So most groups, most nonprofits, advocacy groups, Andrew Yang when he's running for office, right, their model is they raise money from donors and they spend the money hiring staff to go do the mission. The problem with that model is most of your allies who care about civil liberties, say, are not going to give you money because it's not their first priority. And George Soros and Elon Musk will both agree money doesn't buy everything. You can write a huge check to the ACLU, but that doesn't magically solve the problems they are working on. So Action Tank, what we're doing is we take the follower list of the ACLU, which to be clear is a theoretical, not real client. We take their follower list, we enrich it, meaning we figure out who are these people, what's their job, where do they work, who are they married to, and then we figure out what is their comparative advantage. What can they uniquely do to further the cause of the ACLU? And we know we care about it because you're on their mailing list. And we think that right now, historically that happened manually, right? You have a friend who works for, say, a candidate you like, and your friend says, hey, can you help me out? Can you make this intro, right? But that doesn't scale. So we're using AI to scale that up to do micro activations of everyone who cares about that given cause to get you to use your comparative advantage to further the cause of electing Andrew Yang or whatever other cause you may care about.
I can share a company I recently invested as well. It's called Sage Heaven. One of the big thematic thinking that we're thinking beyond just AI, how somebody uses it. It's like kind of like, you know, with kids, right? Like how are they going to interact with content? Now there's like endless content that's AI generated or not, and et cetera. So we essentially invested in this company that's doing, so when you think about Meta, like they don't want to be a publisher, right? Because if they start publishing, it's not good for business for them. So essentially they create an API to help, you know, gaming platforms, social media platforms, et cetera, be able to teach kids how to both interact with AI, understand like what is true, what is not, but also like teach them in real time how to behave on the internet. So this sounds like kind of like maybe not, you know, like it sounds kind of silly in a way, but if you think about long term, one of the biggest issues we have as a society is how we interact with each other on the internet. what we see, what we do, and et cetera. So these types of companies, they're using AI to learn from the data we're already, interacting in the internet, but we're like reteaching the next generation of how to hopefully behave a little better.
And so, actually, Andrew's conversation around telecommunications kind of inspired this example. So we have a company called Illyria, which is a free space optics company. Free space optics is if you communicate information through light going through air instead of wires. And the reason why it's important is because their software autonomously manages communication networks on moving platforms. And so it's the software that Starlink is using, right, to basically ensure almost 100% uptime, which is important in context of natural disasters as well as war. And so this gives you a sense of at least like how we think about autonomy. And the reason why it's very prevalent these days is the wars of today are being fought using unmanned autonomous vehicles. If you look at what's happening in with the Russia-Ukraine war, one of the reasons why these wars are persisting without end in sight is because the main modality of war are fully autonomous drones, fully autonomous like ground vehicles. It has changed the unit economics of war, but it has also changed the timelines.
So, I'll give one from my portfolio quickly, which is Payman, which is a payments company that allows AIs to pay other AIs and AIs to pay humans, the goal being to give bank accounts to AIs, and they're working with big banks to go and do this. And I'm not 100% sure what will happen when the AIs have bank accounts, but I'm very intrigued to see what happens. I'm going to ask a question that was not on the list, but I have to ask it because I just saw it in the news. Because, there's been a lot of talk about AI bubbles. Stock market's down for the 4th day, apparently due to that. Are we in an AI bubble?
From my point of view, I am very grateful to the late-stage investors who are subsidizing me and my companies by lowering the cost of compute and the cost of many other things. They're raising the cost of engineers. So I am nervous, and I am not an investor in the big 5 or so tech companies, 5 AI tech companies. But I do think that it is very parallel, of course, to the big telecom bubble of a few decades ago. It is great for all the smaller companies that are riding on this wave, and that promotes innovation, and some of those companies, including hopefully some of mine, will go on and do great things.
So, maybe. I'm going to be the contrarian here. So here's the thing. I'm really, you have to know what you're investing in. And I think a lot of people, they hear about AI and they're like, oh, that's the future. We're going to make a lot of money just because of AI. And I think a lot, crypto a few years ago, kind of similar thing. It kind of needs to make sense. Like, what is that you're investing in? Is it something that, is helping us do better work, cheaper work? It always comes out to, are you saving money or making somebody money? So I think the baseline of that, whatever you're investing in AI, needs to kind of fit one of those two. And then, I think being technical right now is king, right? So, or king or queen. So if you, are investing in a team that is not technical and they don't really serve any value in society and you're giving them crazy valuations, then yes, there's a bit of a bubble there, right? On the flip side, I do think there's real innovation happening right now. So I think it's just, common sense, right? Just like make sure you're investing in things that you see the market opportunity and you see the growth. And then it comes down to people, like who are you investing in? It comes down, like the best venture is really, I joke that it's more Hollywood than it is Wall Street. You're really investing in people and the potential they have and the ideas they have, and does that vision become something that changes the world, right? So don't think AI, money or AI success. It's like, no, who's the individual? What are they actually building?
Let me try and crash the market right now. So I'll just share with you 2 quick data points. So we've built our own AI native tech stack to monitor our portfolio, do a lot of other really cool things. And it's hot swappable between all the LLM providers. In other words, we can switch between OpenAI and Gemini and so on. The fact that I can do that trivially tells you that it's, from our point of view, a commodity, right? I can't switch between Microsoft Word and Google Docs in the same way, right, trivially. And if you look in the YC companies, they're very heavily using DeepSeek, other open source, predominantly Chinese models. Why? Because it's so much cheaper. Again, not a good sign for the huge late stage companies.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think there might be a bubble right now in the private markets, but what keeps me optimistic, I gotta introduce like the optimist perspective. And all of us are investors, right? To be investors means we are optimists. I'm excited by kind of the shift in total factor of productivity, right? Like that AI is already creating. So I think there perhaps is a bubble forming in the public markets and the private markets, but it has also created huge market opportunity in other sectors. I think any of you who are in the services sectors, maybe you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, you're a consultant, has just seen huge productivity gains around knowledge work and decision making. I'm really glad David, that you brought up the fact that a lot of the Hugging Face and open source models are Chinese. I'd say the one thing that might change the change the unit economics of AI is around it's the geopolitics, right? When we think about like the early days of software companies and internet, a lot of what brought down those costs is actually open source and a lot of collaboration. That's not really the case right now with AI. Like it is very much part of the next arms race. You are seeing countries pushing policies around sovereignty, right? Around the localization of data, around the localization of data centers. And I think that inevitably is going to push up the costs.
We only have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to do one last rapid fire question. You can answer this in one sentence. Area where you think VC should put more money into and isn't, and one area where you think VC should be putting less money into in AI and is right now. Where's there too much money going to? Where's too little money going to?
I can go because I have this one. Healthcare, more money, less money, enterprise SaaS.
There we go. You can just agree with her if you want.
I agree with her, but also maybe what I should say is I do think we're in a defense tech bubble, so maybe less in defense.
I'm a big believer in investment tech, meaning tools to help investors run their operations, source deals, diligence deals. I run a blog on this topic. I think AI, we as VCs, we should be eating our own dog food using AI internally.
I think that's a great place to end, even though we could do this panel for another hour. Give a round of applause to our amazing panelists.